All right. Chef John Varanese, thank you for being with us here today, sir.
Good morning.
Chef and owner of River House and Veronese, two lovely, wonderful restaurants. We appreciate you being here, John.
Oh, thanks for having me this morning.
Yes, sir. Let's start with the rapid fire, just to kind of, get some excitement, get the juices flowing. Favorite Derby dish?
Derby dish? I don't know if there's a specific dish, but during Derby we like to bring out all the stops, truffles and Wagyu and sea bass. So to me, it's all the luxurious ingredients, big lobster tails, caviar. We just think the sky's the limit.
Seafood towers to the sky.
Oh yeah, oh definitely.
I love it. Go-to hangout spot in Louisville.
That changes a lot as you have older and have kids. Man, really not many. Couldn't really even give you one right now.
The restaurant,
my house,
and the family.
the garden.
I love it.
What about back in the day?
Back in the day, wow. It really dates me. You would talk like Phoenix Hill, Cahoots, Pat's. Even Bahama Breeze.
Like Pat's Steakhouse?
Was it? No, Patrick's.
Is that by is it by Frankfurt Avenue Beer Depot? Yeah, that's still around.
Unfortunately, well, they're closing.
Oh,
after all these years,
did they sell, or are they just closing?
I've heard just closing. You'd think you would sell a business that's been around for 80 plus years and whatnot, but I guess some people don't look at that exit strategy, or possibly somebody taking over. That's always a possibility too. So
I feel like it's on Browns, but it's like a staple for that area. I feel like they have a loyal customer base, and anyway.
Yeah, Dark Star used to be another one on Frankfurt Avenue.
Dark Star.
I don't know if that's still around either.
No, it's the Parlor now.
Okay,
it's been through a few different changes, but when I moved here originally, I lived right off of South Height, so right in the neighborhood.
Well, you did bring up something when you're talking about Pat's about like an exit strategy and stuff like that. Not everybody in business thinks about that. Is that something you've been intentional throughout the process of River House and Veronese, or is that something more recently you started thinking of?
More recently, I always really thought about Veronese. I'm lucky enough to be able to buy the property and own the property, so I know I always have that in my back pocket. But selling the brand with my name makes it a little trickier, I think. People have done it before. Jack Fry is a perfect example. There was a Jack Fry. But if you have a brand and people really have a draw to it and a successful business plan that makes income, that somebody could take and run with it. River House is a little more of a generic, I think, in that name, and has a wide appeal to a lot of different people. I didn't really think about River House too much because it was a set lease, and after 20 years, it is what it is, and it's a unique property. It's the first time it's ever been leased, so it's always been run for generations by the family. And the last generation, the boat business kind of went away. They sold all their inventory in the 80s and then just maintained storage and part sales, and happy enough to generate income at that point. So they were good to go for a while. But now kind of looking at negotiating something with them to be able to extend that lease to somebody else when I leave, or when, I guess at some point I'll have a sunset period, but to be able to get something more out of the property instead of just walking away. And that's the tricky part about leases and just even starting business in the first place. And I think the biggest thing that probably held me back from getting my first restaurant, nobody really explained how to get around the collateralization and the cash that you need to do to open up something. So many of stories and go down a big long rabbit hole on that conversation.
Well, that's what we're here to do. I guess just at a high level, someone's thinking about starting a restaurant. Obviously you need to do proof of concept, but let's say someone's got a concept that works. Maybe they already killed it in a food truck. Would you recommend they go into leasing a building or looking at something they can buy? What are the benefits of either of those as a restaurant owner?
It depends how much cash you have and what you're looking into. And, for me, it was, I don't have a recipe for failure. I couldn't fail. If I fail, I lost everything because I tie everything to the line. The biggest part of the lease that hamstrings a lot of people is that, especially in bigger areas, they want the lease totally collateralized. So, if you're looking at a lease that's $10,000 a month, it's $120,000 a year, even on 5 years, or $600,000 in collateralization. And it's like, I barely have $20,000 in my pocket. How am I collateralizing a lease that I have nothing? And that's the biggest thing that I overcame with River House, is that nobody wanted to finance it because of collateralizing that, or a bank having collateral against something. Yeah, I could finance you to do this, but as soon as you buy anything in the restaurant business, it's 10 cents on the dollar. So there's nothing for the bank to come and take. The recipe of success that made it work for Varanese was buying the property and then like, oh yeah, you can make this work. Excuse me. And I was like, well, how's that possible? Well, you buy the building for $500. You need to put $400 in it, and now you're just increasing the equity. Well, now you could borrow against that, and then your FF&E and operating capital was, another $150, and the cash that you're putting down, we could collateralize off of that, and then you could put up whatever other collateral to maintain. It's like, oh wow, that works. But for me, when I was on the search of doing my own thing, it took 5 years to get that answer. Yeah. So, so buying something, always investing in something, knowing that it's yours, that you have something at the end of it, I think really works. But I don't think people look at the long term. I mean, shoot, how many, especially younger generations, they rather rent than go buy a house and save, pretty much pay themselves, build principal, have something at the end of it. So it's a hard first step to make, but you really got to believe in yourself and your concept. A lot of people get in the restaurant business and think, oh, I could do this. This is easy. Oh, I like food. I've done this before. I'm a great chef, but are you a great business owner? Or I'm a great business owner, but are you a chef? That's what really works with me, that understanding both parts of it, and I could drive both ends, understanding what I'm doing in the kitchen, how that's going to correlate financial, and then how many restaurants, or even great restaurants in town, that have their ups and downs because the chef changes. Yeah. Finding that person is they don't have that backbone of it always being that consistent, and that's something that's helped me be really successful, because when you come to my restaurant, you're coming to John Veronese's food, not just X restaurant. So. Mm-hmm.
Talking about, I know outside of not having a recipe for failure, what was one of the key business metrics that you looked at that for River House? It's like, hey, I believe in this thing. It's going to work. This is why.
I looked at all the things that demographics, they always say location. And, the first thing I saw is like, it's built up on this natural levee. I'm out of the flood zone. We have 300 feet of riverfront view, but also the accessibility. I have a main artery downtown off of River Road that's 3 miles, takes you 10 minutes. All the freeways tie into each other, 71, 64. So super accessible there, besides being close to downtown. And then, pretty much backyard, Indian Hills, one of the wealthiest communities in the city. So you had a built-in audience already there. Mm-hmm. Hindsight, really finding out that, River House is a lot of driven from out-of-town business, just from the sheer size, and also the notoriety that we've and accolades we've received over the years definitely has a big draw, and just the amount of people that we're able to seat. A lot of restaurants, you can only seat a 10 top or a 12 top. We have a lot of spaces that we could accommodate a lot of larger parties, so we get on those preferred lists a lot quicker.
I love it.
That is awesome. And so you went to culinary school. When you were there, did they teach you much about the business side of the restaurant, or was it just focusing on the craft?
Well, I got my associates at Johnson Wales in Charleston, South Carolina, which has now moved to Charlotte, and So that was more on the craft. But as a kid growing up, I started working in a little mom and pop restaurant when I was 14. And for me, I always kind of wanted financial independence and how am I going to get there? And by the time I was 16, I needed to start thinking about what am I going to do at college? I played football. I could have went to Division III, but looking at a career and how to get there and how to find that financial independence, I wanted to be a business owner. And at that time, it's like, I'm going to own restaurants. And this is the time that TGI Fridays was kind of hot. And it's like, I love that kind of concept and do something that's kind of cutting edge, but not and own 5 restaurants. And I always kind of said that and always kind of set in my head. And for me, growing up, so, okay, how do you get there? Well, learn from your mentors if you like it or not. Take the positives out of it and, bank the negatives and make sure that you're not making the mistakes that you're seeing growing through there. And then also to get the business degree. So after I got my associates and I thought I'd get my business degree at Ohio State, and being from Cleveland and a big Buckeye fan, and also saving, at that time it was $3,500 a year to go to Ohio State compared to the $12,000 I was paying to go to culinary school. I'm like, great, I'll move back home and do this, and find out being in class with 400 people and a teacher telling you to look in the book when you ask a question wasn't going to work out for me. So I returned to Johnson & Wales and got my business degree down there. And if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be where I am today, understanding accounting and business planning and, your financials and understanding them. At the state level, Ohio State, it's explaining accounting and widgets, and my brain doesn't work that way. And I failed it miserably. And I go back to Johnson & Wales, and it's food costs, labor costs, cost of sales, rent. I'm like, oh yeah, all that stuff makes sense to me. And all of a sudden I'm just getting A's. I end up graduating with honors. I'm like, where did that come from? But always kind of business oriented, money oriented. That's the math I could do. Don't give me algebra with letters and trying to create a value for that. But hard knows money and where it goes and how it flows in a financial and a balance sheet and a cash flow sheet. That stuff makes sense to me.
Yeah. That's kind of why we started this show, is because there are so many different aspects of business, and everybody understands their business, whether it's cooking, whether it's, being an artist, whether it's an engineer. It's like, your business, but there's also just the overall aspect of business that sits above all business and enterprise that you take on. And it's just interesting. Some people are really good at their craft and never think about the business side of things. And boom, one day they're like, oh, wow, this is a lot. And then other people come in with the business aspect and they're like, well, dang, I need to figure out what my craft is. What is it? And it sounds like you were able to marry those early on and really run with it. And that's got to be a big portion of your success. Looking at most restaurants don't last as long as you've been able to make River House last. That's awesome.
No, and I was lucky as a kid because, getting into working in a restaurant at a young age, and I'm like, well, I enjoy doing it and I'm good at it. All my other friends goofing off or whatever, I had the job that, I played sports, went to school, made sure I had my job. I had the money, I was drinking Miller High Life and they're still drinking Natty Light, Bush Light, whatever it may be. But, for me, I just, always had that drive and, what's next. And when Azalea brought me up here and in 98, it was just take an opportunity, even though that I was probably a little underqualified at that time. But, for me, I give it all in. I run it like it's mine. And that was always my philosophy is, before I've had my own business, is like, you better treat it like your own, learn under someone else and make those mistakes while it's not your money. So when it is your time, that you're going to be successful. And part of the comment I made before that there's no recipe for failure. And it's all those things building up to that point of time of, making sure that you're bulletproof at what you're doing and that you have one option to do it. And Varanese was a very big trial and tribulation of that because I opened in 2007 and going right into the 2008 financial crash and weathering that. Luckily, I was single and didn't have kids, and I could still eat ramen noodles or whatever it was. And, I paid myself exactly what I made, even before that, I really didn't have much of a job, but it was pay my rent, pay my car, and, I didn't need anything else, especially in the restaurant. I had food there. I'm good. So it's just paying the bills, keeping the bare minimum, and, eventually you'll come out on the other side. So it's just keep on pushing. And again, not having that failure. But if I had a wife and kids and other responsibilities at that time, I don't know if I'd be here where I am today. Might have had to find other avenues to create income to support other people, but it was worked really well that all I had to do is take care of myself for a period of time. And I took those successes and rolled it over and got back at River House again, which was another long, wild shot, crazy dream that I was shooting after, and which even turned into Varanese opening in the first place.
I think that's a common misconception is like, things are supposed to be easy, right? So you add on the layer of the, the great financial crisis in '08. How long did it take before you kind of started coming out of the other side and seeing the light? And you said, man, I got a couple bucks in my pocket. I can enjoy life a little bit. I can breathe.
Maybe around 2010, 11, because at that point I was looking at my financials and I was making money, never laid on a bank payment or anything else in that nature. And I always had my sight, my eyes were that site of the River House location, and went to the bank, said, hey, I have this track record where you guys, want to do a lease on this property. So, explain that whole story in itself. So after I even left Azalea, so they brought me here in 98. I left in 01. Owners and I just didn't see eye to eye. I was really doing well with that business. I've more than doubled their net profit, dropped their operating costs, got them back on the map just in the city as a whole, of accolades, the culinary aspect of things. And so we parted ways, and, at that time realized that the only really job stability is having my own. So was on the search of doing that. In the meantime, just plugged away, doing consulting, catering, work for this place, work for that place. You always got hired to fix something that was broken, and it stayed broken for a reason. So those things were short-lived. But that time in 01, it was January. I had a location I was working on, and somebody kind of swiped it out from underneath me. I was trying to actually get them in to invest in me, and they're like, oh yeah, I got a closing on this property, that you were looking at, and I want you to be a partner. I'm like, no, thank you. So I went down to the river just to kind of sulk a little bit, my own little sorrows, and saw that big for lease sign on the river. I'm like, oh man, that'd be really cool, but there's no way I could afford that, having property on the river. Just trying to find anything else in town was already a challenge, and started driving away. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, you have nothing better to do, turn around and go have that conversation. So I did, and found out that what they were willing to lease it for was affordable, and understanding the demographics. So I set my sights on that, and 9/11 happened in September and turned everything upside down. So I went on my merry way, actually getting a job out at the Cardinal Club in Simpsonville, and GM was from Cleveland, so we kind of hit it off, and kind of called it my purgatory. Never really wanted to be a country club chef, and but it was a great place to stay while I was working on a business plan. And every 6 months I go back to the landlord, like, okay, how about we make this work? How about we make this work? And then again, going back, finding out on a lease, trying to do a $3 million project at that time, there's not finding the collateral on it. So Houston Jones came up to me in 06, who was a restaurant designer and did real estate himself in the business. And he's like, hey, Red Lounge is up for sale. I'm like, Red Lounge. I'm like, little old box that used to be a bar restaurant, and it was just really small. But after kind of looking at it and understanding, going back to business, of I need more seats to create the money I need to pay a staff, pay a sous chef, to make it financially work. So that's what we end up putting that extension on it. And as I talking before of buying the property, able to collateralize all that. So going back to your question of finding out where you were in a good financial position was, and like I said, in 2011 and 12, where I wanted to start the River House project again, and went to my bank and said, "Hey, this is what it is." They're like, "Okay, you do this, 20% down." I'm like, "All right." So I spent a year, hired an architect, had a builder, had everything together. I'm like, finally, we're ready to go, and the builder's like, "You probably should go circle back around with your bank." "Oh, no, I'm good. This is what they told me." "You probably should really go circle right back around with your bank." I'm like, "Okay." So I call up the financial advisor there, and it's like, "All right, I'm ready to go. I have all this, and that." And they're like, "Okay, let's go revisit the business plan, this, and that." And they're 20% down, which I earned, saved all that stuff at Varanese. I was ready to go. And they're like, "Oh, we want 35%. I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I was like, "It's going to take me another 6 years to get to where I need to be, or I have to go find outside investment." I'm like, "I don't want to do that." So I spent the next year talking over 60 different financial institutions, to every bank that was out there, private investor, angel investors, went through SBA, other organizations downtown. I forget what they all were at that time, but I found every little route I could to pretty much get the answer no. So I went back to the bank, had one more conversation. I'm like, "All right, I need you to lock me in what this is, not move the needle this time." And it took me about another year and a half to find the other, it was actually almost half, a little less than half of what I had already to go find an outside venture. And it's not an easy thing. Everybody always talks about it, and they'll talk about it. "Oh yeah, give me a call when you want to open a place." And when it comes down to signing that check over, "Oh, well, my taxes were more than this," or this, every excuse in the world. And you're just spinning the tail. And even at River House, I finally got to like the last two and let two of them back out. And I'm like, wow. And then it was funny because the last partner in came, he was sitting up at the bar, and I never met him before. And he's like, "I hear you're opening up a restaurant on the river." I said, "Maybe." He's like, "No, really? Is that something you're doing?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, I might be interested in it." I'm like, "Really?" So I gave him the 20-minute spiel, and he's like, "I'll get back to you tomorrow." And tomorrow he's like, "I'm in." So it's just funny how things come together sometimes. And but that was a wild ride. But again, answering your question, when you knew that you were ready, and for me, it was just kind of always parlaying things over. Now, to actually see the fruition of all that, it wasn't until maybe 3 years ago that I actually started putting money away for retirement. Because this whole time, you're betting on yourself, and you're just rolling it over. And like I said, back to, there's no recipe for failure. So it's just pushing forward, keeping your nose down, saying, this is the goal, and you need to get there. So that's just kind of, I don't know, my stubbornness, my Italian in me, how I've just always focused and don't like the word no, or you can't do this. I told my parents I was buying the Red Lounge, and I actually took them. We went to go to dinner at Bourbon's Bistro. It just opened, kind of a hip new restaurant at that time. And then the Red Lounge used to be a hip cocktail bar with great food when it was part of Dietrich's before he sold off on that. I'm like, "Yeah, I want you to check out this place, have drinks." And this is as they were going downhill, and we were like, yeah, we don't want to be here. It's time to go. The back bar was like empty because obviously it looked like they were kind of going out of business, and things were just very dingy and grimy. And so my parents saw that, like, you don't want to do that. Even my GM now, I hired him as my manager. We worked together at Azalea. I hired him as my manager at the Cardinal Club. He's like, "You don't want to buy that place. You don't want to buy that gas station." And so many people told me, "Oh, you don't want to do this." I'm like, "I'm going to do it." And what it came out to be, everybody was like, "Oh, wow." Same thing with River House. "What are you going to do with that big building?" I'm like, "Don't worry about it. Got a vision."
So you made the purchase on Red Lounge, and that was while trying to still bring River House to life. It was in its infancy.
Well, so the River House concept was, I was already working on that for 5 years. Buying the Red Lounge was just at a point where I kind of conceding to River House. So I remember looking at that property, figuring out how I could make it work, and I went to the landlord at River House. I'm like, all right, one last time. Here's my deal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to give you 5%. I need you to help me get this thing to work, or I'm going on this project. And he just looked at me. He's like, well, I guess time's not right. And that's when I opened up Varanese. And opened up Varanese. It was a wild ride for a while, for the first couple of years. It's funny. I'd leave at night, look back, like, wow, this thing's mine. I really own this thing. But I would always go down like the River House property and still see the for lease sign on there. Like, it's still there. It's still there. I mean, this for lease sign sat there for 15 years. But in 2007, I thought I walked away from it and it was done and somebody else was going to take it and that pipe dream was over. So knowing that it was still available all that time and I was able to actually put it all together. So
I get it. I made the connection. Red Lounge is where Varanese is today.
Yes, that was the property.
Yeah.
So when I moved here, talk about the area not being developed, it was still I don't know, it was import doctor, German import car shop, but nobody went to the south side of the tracks. It was a gravel lot and it had chain link fence all the way to the street, and it was over the curb and in the street. And, everything was kind of locked in there, and it just wasn't a very appealing part of town. And it's just amazing just seeing that area change, and even the history of that building. It was built in a Gulf station in the late 1800s, and then that building was built in the 50s for another gas station and more focus on the service. And that building's still there. I still have the garage doors there. Still have the exhaust in the bottom of the door where they exhaust all the fumes out of it. The one private dining room was the front cashier's room, so you can kind of really see all this still. And we always make the joke, it's like, hey, we're still here to fill you up. So, but anyway, it's been a wild ride, and it's been fun. Lots of challenges. COVID, oh my goodness, something that you'd never thought would happen. The only thing that kept my sanity on that was knowing that you're not alone. It's one thing if you have a failing business, but when everything else around you is turned upside down, it's a little easier to sit back and accept it, I guess, a little bit, because we didn't really have much choice of doing anything else. But
yeah, you weren't on an island by yourself, right?
Yeah, not the only one, not the only one drowning.
Yeah, you brought something with you today.
Yeah, this is an oar paddle that was upstairs in River House. I talked about how my landlord had everything on that second floor, from boat parts to brochures to dog beds to whatever it was that he had stored up there. I mean, the building, the second floor is 11,000 square feet, and it was filled to the brim. So thought there's something kind of fun. We took it out for a momentum, and when I did the press release of opening that, everybody signed it. And to me, this is a resemblance of perseverance and not giving up. 15 years in the making. So,
has that been signed over time, or was that all signed?
No, that's all signed from original. And it's funny, it just sits up on top of some books in my in my office, and but it's just kind of a great representation of not taking no for an answer, and to keep on going and pushing as a business owner. Like I said, from 2001 to 2016. That I started a project and finally finished it, and knowing exactly that's what I wanted to do, even though Varanese was a great way to start, segue, and obviously things happen for a reason. I guess I needed to figure out how to do more of it at a smaller level, smaller scale, build up more relationships and hone crafts and skills and business management and all those things together. So, like I said, it's been a wild ride, but this thing to me is just not taking no.
Yeah.
If you want something, go get it.
I could tell. I mean, it means a lot to you. Clearly, you're passionate. You got a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I always looked at too, as like, growing up, financially just was never there. I always shoveled snow and mowed lawns and whatever it was to make a buck, because if I wanted something, I had to go buy it. But when you break down people, how they are, what makes this person different from me? Same person, they might be in a better financial position, but that's it. So for me, it was breaking those boundaries, breaking those thresholds, saying, why can't I be there? And all my life, not all my life, but in the pursuant of opening your own business, oh, you can't do that. Oh, that's too much, or you're not going to be able to pull that off. And I think those things kind of continue to push me to be better and saying, why not? Why is somebody else going to do it? What makes that different for me? Why am I so much different? So it's just what you put into it, what you get out of it.
You can
say that for athletes, musicians, whatever it is. To be great, you got to keep on practicing, keep on trying, not taking that no for the answer. So
never take yourself out of the game, right?
Nope.
Be the man in the arena. Yeah. So you touched on mentors early in the pod. Who was your first mentor?
Dino. So back in Cleveland, a little mom and pop restaurant, immigrant from Italy, left there, he was 17, spent 17 years in Argentina, and moved to the States and opened up his own restaurant. But he was like a father figure, but a great chef to teach. And I guess I didn't realize him really being a chef. It was more of a mom and pop restaurant, but made everything from scratch. We were making gnocchi and cavatelli and stuffing our own sausage and making our own pizza dough and making our own tomato sauce. And he'd make his own wine. And there's other Italian culture, to it too. His buddies all hunt. And, first time I ate bear, I'm like, wow. So besides deer and whatever else, but they were definitely men of the country and did everything from scratch and whatnot. And ended up working for him for about 5 years. And 1 year, again, family run, his wife ran it, his daughters and whatnot. So they all wanted to go to Italy for a month and left me and the waitress in charge for an entire month. And I'm 16 years old. That was a wild ride itself. One weekend, the power went out, and we're like one of the only blocks that had power. And I had to line out the door from time it opened to the time it closed. I had to close halfway through the day, and I called my brother. I'm like, hey, yo, can you come here and help me prep some food, because I'm out of everything. I had to get trucks in. I mean, what I did in that weekend was more than he's done in almost 3 weeks in sales. I mean,
yeah. And you were 16?
I was 16. So his record sales for a day was like $800-900, and one of the days it did like $2,500. I just blew through everything.
Is that something you called him while he was in Italy to let him know?
No, I didn't even know how to get home. Didn't even bother. Just dug down and did whatever I needed to do.
Again.
And heck of a learning experience. But yeah, he's like, I got you all this stuff ordered. We have all this stuff prep. A lot of stuff like the pastas or the sausage we prep and put it in the freezer. And anything I need was pretty much there. There's like some minimal. The produce guy will come visit you and. Everything was gone. Like after the first day, the second day, I was like, I have no food left.
You were the only,
even if I wanted to.
Only restaurant on the block open.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So, talking about some wild rides but again, you step up to plate. What you do? You close the doors easily or gave up after it. But it's like, how do we make this work? But yeah, calling my siblings to come help me out was pretty funny, and they did, and they stepped up.
I love it. Was this in a primarily Italian neighborhood in Cleveland? Was it like a local, or was it a mixed bag? I'm picturing like a small Italian diner and different generations coming through. It was
actually in a strip mall, and it was off a pretty busy road. But there's a lot of Italians in Cleveland. There's a lot of different ethnicities. Actually, Little Italy would be, off the same road, but maybe 8 miles down the other way. But there was a pizza shop. There's a movie theater across the street. There's a big box restaurant across the street, a car dealership over there. So, I mean, it was in a pretty high traffic, I guess, area at the time. Suburban. A hardware store on the corner. And but, yeah, we were just in this little shopping strip and maybe sat, I don't know, 50, 60 people. It wasn't a very big restaurant at all. So
I love it.
What from your perspective of being someone who, failure is not an option, both your restaurants have been very, very successful. Why do other restaurateurs or, people in restaurants struggle so much? Why is it such a tough industry?
There's so many different facets of running a restaurant, and, people want to sit there and try to pick the one or two things that you're talking about, but it's made up of a million little things, and it all has to be right, from the aesthetics to the bathrooms being clean to the candles and the servers being dressed right and the food being consistent all the time, location, having a cuisine that's going to appeal to the people. Another thing that I kind of pride myself in, at least with Varanese's concept, people would be like, oh, you're Italian. I really try to get more of a fusion, or I called it Mediterranean at first, because I didn't want to be locked into a specific cuisine, and then to be able to be what I call a chameleon, to change with the times and change with the people's palates and what's trending and, what's not, and trying to keep that appeal always out there. And nowadays, the amount of allergies that you have to come up with. I mean, just this past year, I'm looking over my GM. I'm like, I've been doing this for 35 years, and I have people telling me carrageenan. I'm like, what the hell is carrageenan? And I'm reading labels and trying to figure all this stuff out. And then yesterday, I had two people tell me penicillin. And he looked at me again, and it's like, we're just laughing. It's like, neither of us in our career, between the two of us, we have 70 years of experience, and we've never heard this. Penicillin in food. We know blue cheese, obvious, and as a person that has an allergy, you should know what you're able to eat and not eat. And then the whole thing with charcuterie came up. I'm like, well, some of the cures, it could produce, not produce, but I'm like, wow. So
people are coming in worried about penicillin being in their food? Is that what?
Two people yesterday. And this is the first time I ever heard it. And then this year, it's been the carrageenan and a lot of different other ingredients in there. I don't know if everybody's just all getting allergy shots and they're all breaking it down. I think the carrageenan has something to do with these tick bites, where people are starting to be allergic to meat.
Interesting.
So I think that's a derivative somewhere from an animal product that's in that form of the tick bite. And that's the Lyme disease. So that's becoming a lot more prevalent over the past couple of years, the exposure to it. So that's pretty interesting. But, yeah, going back to, what makes businesses successful is just, I think being able to adapt and understand. You got to understand your numbers, too. Yeah. So you got to have the both sides. You got to understand what makes it work and then how to make it profitable. And there's, I watch some chefs all day long in town. It's like, man, you can't make $1 if your life depended on it, because you want to be uber creative. After Dark Star, the perfect example on Frankfurt Avenue, a restaurant opened called Masonette. Tried to be this 5-star restaurant, and read the menu and went in there and saw the kitchen. I mean, it had all the elaborate, fancy ingredients. 1 pound lobster claws and the truffles and the caviar and the Wagyu, and everything was like super meticulous. And I looked at their prices. And I'm like, I don't know how you're making money. And it lasted like 6 months. Found out the chef was hiding invoices and just kind of burning it just so they could do culinarily, the greatest, next thing than sliced bread. But are you going to make money off of it? Mm-hmm. And so that's the other part of it. For me, it's want to be financially successful. You want to run a business that's going to do well. And there's kind of a guideline of how you do that in the financials, and you got to stick to it. But it doesn't take much to screw it up.
Yeah.
If you're not managing your product effectively and stuff is going to waste, or you're burning it, or you over purchase something, or too much labor is scheduled. I mean, you could sneeze and you could go from a 10% profit to negative 10% in a heartbeat. And in a restaurant, the margins are pretty dang slim. You know, nowadays, if you're doing 10, 15%, you're doing pretty good. And when Varanese opened, I mean, I was at 6. So, you know, it takes a while to get out of there, but you fix a lot of that with volume. But on the other hand, you can't have 10 million people on the clock or paying them X amount. It all has to fit in within a range. If not, it's lost pretty quickly.
It's a pretty big formula, it sounds like. And if one variable gets it's almost like a recipe, but then extrapolate it out to a business. And if one thing, you get a little too much sugar in there, it's like, oh, nope, this doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, you have your set costs laid out to you. And if you made bad decisions and whatnot on that, you know, recently my partner and I have been courted to open another River House and looking at the rents. The rent right now, I won't share it with anybody, but I stole it. You know, I could buy that property, but it's at the rate I pay it, rent, it'd take me 60 years to pay it off. So I'm going to take my money and run. Yeah. But when you talk to some other people and you put cams in on top of it, and luckily I don't have a cam, it's, you know, triple net, and it's just us on the hill there. But it's just something like that in the formula of how do you make that work? Yeah. And you already priced yourself out of it. We talked about another location, not going to mention names, but, you know, when you're paying rent and a percentage over that rent on sales, I mean, it takes away from that bottom line pretty quick. And it's easy to get into a situation like that. And, you know, I even seen that with myself. It's like, you know, you're so excited to get something going, especially the first time. I mean, I guess even the millionth time when you open a business is still exciting. You still get that, you know, driven and whatnot, but the things end up slipping by. And, you know, the more you do it, you try to not let those little things kind of slip by. But if you overlook something, it could be very detrimental to the whole plan. So
measure twice, cut once.
Yeah. Definitely.
You got it.
Talk a little bit about culture and leadership, right? Like, how do you create the right culture, excuse me, and maintain it within your businesses? And then how do you view leadership?
Culture for me, I mean, and I always looked at it as like, treat people the way you want to be treated, number one, and, you know, and set those expectations. You know, I'm going to treat you with respect, but I want to be treated with respect back. And, you know, some of that's kind of the challenging in, I guess, the restaurant business, because everything is just always fast paced, loosey goosey, you know, sometimes. But, you know, for me, I think that carries a lot of my management staff. So, you know, in the restaurants, you always kind of have I call your edges that are always kind of turning over a little more rapid. And then you have your next layer of people that are there for a couple of years. But then when you have management and people by you, like David Allen, you know, my partner at Varanese, has been there for 17 years. And my management staff at River House, you know, Dan's been with me since I've opened. I have another couple managers have been there since I've opened, sales people and people that, you know, the other part of that too is developing from within, giving people opportunity to better themselves. Two of my sous chefs at River House were Sullivan students when I first opened. They were 18 years old. One, his only other job before was at a McDonald's, and was in a town that had one stop sign, not even a stoplight. And, you know, you take your time, you give them the respect, you develop those people, and then they give it back to you. And, you know, nine and a half years later, he's in a management position. He's bought his own house, and, you know, you're watching them grow up and mature and get opportunity, and, you know, they continue to give back. And I think that's kind of what builds the culture in your businesses. And for those people that could go and attest to it, when I'm interviewing a new sous chef, or, you know, even a line cook that has that aspiration, it's like, see these two guys here, they started off and not being able to shuck an oyster to running my kitchen, you know, and I have two of them that were day oneers. that are in those positions now. And I have another one that's in a sous position. He is from a small island in the Caribbean. And when he first started, he couldn't handle the fast pace. He's like, you Americans here, everything's fast. You all want it now. I remember throwing pans at the wall, and just he couldn't handle the stress level and the speed. And he would just sit down and have a conversation and work with them. And, next thing I know, he's working one of my most skilled positions in the kitchen, and he's earned himself a management position, over the years. But it's developing the people through that, and just in your teams, that really just help, I think, facilitate. And that's part of the recipe of success for restaurants too, is because we try consistency, and you can't have consistency if you're constantly turning over staff. I had a big argument with my GM because he always worked a lot of big boxes, and things were cut and dry when you're projecting labor. And I'm like, yeah, wintertime's really slow, and I'm not going to lose half my staff and then try to rebuild it in the spring and get waxed again and not have that consistency. So I'm willing to spend some extra money to keep the team together and not to have to reinvent the wheel all the time. There are some other businesses that are in town that have that seasonality, and they just don't execute as well as we do because they have that turnover. They don't have business for them, so those people go elsewhere, and you don't have that consistency.
Yeah,
so
you never find a groove, right?
Go scrub the tiles, go wash the ceiling, go paint a pole, go do something that's gonna improve the business. I'll pay you as long as you're doing something. And as best as you can, you try to find that balance, but you keep your teams together, and that's part of that leadership part and part of the consistency part, and I think what people kind of gravitate to. And, even me, it's like, I won't ask you to do anything I'm not doing. I can't tell you how many times I washed dishes on a Saturday night, had to leave my position of running the wheel because I'm watching them crash. And I'm like, okay, guys, this is how you do it. It's not rocket science. And I'd be over there for an hour to get them caught up and then go back to do what I was doing again. And this is when I have 25 people working in the kitchen, and I'm the one doing dishes, and I'm writing your check. And that's why I try to, tell a lot of people, it's like, they don't want to do something. I'm like, well, I expect you to do it. I'm going to do it myself. And on top of that, I sign your check, and I'm going to do it anyway. There's no room in the dumpster. Who's jumping on it, making room? Me. Your chef and your owner that has this huge business here is doing whatever it takes to make it work. That's what we do, no matter what. You just do it. And like I said, we get thrown adversities every day, from equipment breaking to AC going down to the garbage guy didn't pick up, your laundry guy didn't deliver your towels. You have no towels and aprons. I'm like, all right, get a bucket and some soap. Let's start washing them and dry them under the heat. I mean, it's just ingenuity. I mean, constantly, I don't know how many things are fixed with duct tape just to get through, the moment of time, and we'll take care of it later because we got to keep on pushing through. And
that's how most of us sounds like Dylan.
Yeah, I'm big on that kind of stuff just because, I agree. Have you ever read the book Culture Code by Daniel Coyle?
No.
Well, there's one chapter, talks about like leaders pick up trash too, and it just breaks down a bunch of examples of, really big CEOs and down to just, really famous local business leaders who are just symbols of, sure, it's the mailman's job to deliver all the mail, but mailman's sick, so I'm going to do it. That, that type of stuff where technically they're above the role of, washing dishes in the kitchen, but you're the owner. You're going to take over and do that because as a good leader, that's what you have to do. And it seems like you're a symbol of that. But also in Culture Code, it talks about Danny Myers, who did like Shake Shack, a big restaurateur in New York City. And a lot of his restaurants and like culture was all about, he didn't want the I'm messing up that word. Cyclical nature of the staff always leaving, like you discussed. So he was always like, look, we're going to build people up. We're going to train them with inside and try to keep them on staff as long as possible, because that not only will they be better for the restaurant, but they'll be better for themselves. And like a lot of servers, the edges you talked about, who are constantly treating everything as like a gig, they kind of struggle in that world. Whereas if you're a bartender or server, you stick at a restaurant for 5-10 years, get your regulars, you can easily be pushing 6 figures or more.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of servers that do that, and you know, again, it's treating that respect. You give them the opportunity, and it's helping people out. You know, I can't tell you how many loans I've taken care of employees that, you know, taking care of me that fell on hard times, or bailed somebody out of jail, or took somebody to the hospital, or took somebody other's family member because they had a fire and they needed clothing, or you know, there's multiple different levels. I had a sous chef that passed away a few years ago and started a GoFundMe for him and his family, and you know, still every Christmas that we're sending their kids gifts, and you know, it's that part of culture. And then, you know, again, as you're talking, as being the CEO yourself, you know, for me, I think I'm pretty humble, and part of that is I always said never forget where you came from. Yeah. You know, don't ever lose sight of that. You know, it's like all of a sudden you're too big for everybody else, and it's not. You know, I'm just like you, everyday Joe Schmo. You know, I am where I am because I worked hard. So it's like you could get there too. You could be there too, and you know, what are you going to put into it? I have a lot of conversations too with people that want to be where I am one day, and what it takes to get there. And sometimes it's in one ear and out the other, and sometimes they get it. And you know, I think what it all breaks down to is discipline. And again, you know, I break it down to like musicians and athletes. It's that you keep on doing the same thing until you're great at it. You know, a lot of them be like, "Oh, this is so hard," or "This is so challenging," or "I hate doing that." I'm like, well, do it enough to where it doesn't bother you, because now you can do it without thinking about it, and you're that good at doing it. And guess what? Now it doesn't bother you anymore. That was my biggest challenge of going from Varanese, small box that had 100% control on it, to giving up that control so I could take on something else. And I had let a lot of other things just kind of roll off. I'm like, I can't micromanage that anymore. I can't totally focus on that. I have to put those expectations on other team members, or, you know, little things that drive me nuts. I'm like, okay, I'll take care of that tomorrow. I'll take care of that. I can't do that right now at the moment, but I'll circle back around to it. So finding out how to let some of that go, and then building the team, and then letting them figure it out. I do that more and more now. I pull myself out of the, you know, a lot of the operation, and stay in the background, keeping things together, because you can't learn if I'm going to be doing your job every day. And I'm going to let you do it, and what you don't do right in my eyes, I'm going to point it out. Yeah. And if you want to be as great as I am, you're going to be able to see that. And a lot of kids, you know, learning in the business, no matter what position you are, it's I describe it like horses and their blinders. You know, the young horses are all like wild and whatnot, and they have to put the blinders on them because you got to focus on the track. And the one job you have to do is, you know, run that circle and not see what's in the stands. And as you get more comfortable at what you're doing, you're able to start to take those blinders off a little more, because now what's the guy doing next to me? What's he doing over here? Well, I turn around, let me finish what they're doing for them, because I can, and being harmonious and like that, and part of the team. And as you get past that level, you know, sitting back and be able to see everything that's going on. And even like a quarterback, you know, they talk about how the game slows down for them the older they get. You know, you're not focusing on your first and second receiver. You know what the third and fourth and where they're going to be at that time, and that you could hit that pass. And that's the same thing, kind of running the business, that you've done it enough, it slows down enough that you see everything that's going on and who's doing what. And, you know, even though they're totally out of sight, you know what's kind of going on. And, you know, that helps really kind of, you know, managing, especially a restaurant, you know, because it's all real time, and it's all moving at once, you know, a fast speed. And, you know, it's kind of hard to circle back around on certain things. You know, it's just constantly developing, and decisions had to be made right then and there. And hopefully most of the time it's the right decision. Every once in a while, like, well, I would have did that differently next time. And you reflect on that too. So, you know, for me, even to this day, how do I be better? How do I handle that differently? How do I have that conversation differently? It becomes a lot more coaching, I guess, as I get older, and how many sit downs I have to have with certain team members to get them to understand that. Some brains are wired that way, some are not, you know, and that's why you have your leaders and you have your followers. The cream always floats to the top.
It's a great litmus test of another culture code chapter is like, when you most need, leaders are usually gone when you most need them there. It's like comes that point where you're just like, look, I know you guys need my help, but it's on you. You got to figure it out. And that's, at the end of the day, as you're the leader, you can look back and say, all right, this guy's able to handle it. This guy, maybe we should leave him next to me. So that's cool.
But I still, even those, and it's like, I'm going to let you take some more hard knocks just to figure it out.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're able to break it, a little bit, like the kid from the small Caribbean nation. I'm like, wow, I never would have thought that, especially underneath me, because usually when they have those frustrations, they blame it on everybody else and don't take the responsibility on themselves. And they move on. So it's usually after they moved on a couple times. And I can't tell you how many people come back, oh, I really appreciate you, for what you did. But you don't see that at the period of time. Grass is always greener on the other side. But, when you're able to put yourself in check and take responsibility on yourself, and I think that person's a great example of that, because they got themselves developed now. Still rough around the edges of some parts, but from where it started to where it is light years away. So I call that a success.
Do you spend more time at Varanese or River House?
It depends. Mostly on normal aspects. It's at River House just because of the size of it. Mm-hmm. My kitchen staff alone is larger than the entire staff at Varanese.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, running lunch service too. At times I feel like I need to be there more. I'm usually there, sometimes I might not be there for a week or two. And then there's times I'm there 3 times a week. Not usually all, in service and whatnot, throughout. I go and check in. I have meetings with my teams weekly. But if I'm in there and that place is so small, I'm just kind of doing your job for you, or I'm in the way. Again, I'm trying to develop these people. I was there for almost an 18-month stint. All of a sudden I had the kitchen blow up and a total changeover in management. And that's not an easy thing to replace. So I did like 2 9-month stints. I was there every day, 6 days a week. Even through COVID and some of the other things of hiring people coming out of COVID, nobody wanted to work. And actually, so 2020, it would have been open for 14 years. I had to close down 1 day a week, which I've always operated 7 just because I couldn't staff it. I'm like, I could have opened 7, but then I'm burning my staff out.
Yeah.
Well, that's not fair to them, and you're going to have nothing if you continue along that path. So, again, being successful, being able to adapt and to change, and back to 7 days, got things rebuilt. Staffing is getting a little more. People are getting a lot more engaged back into work again, and it's becoming a little easier, but there's still a lot of challenges with staffing out there, and people wanting to be being engaged in the workforce. And there's all these different ways people are finding ways to make money now.
Yeah.
I'm a influencer. How many people want to try that route, or just I'm gonna be an Uber driver. It's easier, or I'm gonna do DoorDash, or you see a lot of those different things that pull people away, I guess, from the workforce or traditional, and go in a different area. For a period of time, being a chef, Food Network and whatnot, it was kind of prestigious, and people really wanted to do it. But finding out the hard work, problem with Gen Z wants that instant gratification for what they do and don't want to put in the time. Oh, I went to culinary school and I've worked for 2 years. I'm ready to run my own restaurant. Sit there and laugh. Sure, try. Some of them can develop quicker than others. I developed, I think, quickly at my age. When I was 23, I was the youngest sous chef at Magnolia's in Charleston. It took me less than 2 years to work my way up the ranks, and when they hired me to work the line, and the next day they stuck me in prep. I'm like, really? Didn't have the hours, and it was like, okay, how do I get my way up? What are you doing over there? Show me what you're doing. All right, you want to go back and do the easy job? I got your job. And I do that all the way up the line and learned every position. You know, nobody gave it to me. I just show me what you're doing. Come here, let me do that for you. You know, and most people, they want the easy way out. So this guy's going to come up and do my job. They'd be scrubbing the line at the end of the night, and I was done. I'm like, can I help you scrub? Sure. You could do all the crappy work. But, you know, for me, it was hours. It was getting part of it, and it was whatever it took to
getting those reps
to work your way up, and without getting the nod to do it. But once I showed that, chef's like, oh, yeah, I heard you worked pantry last night. Let's see what you could do tonight and do it. All right, you're on the schedule. Oh, I see you could run flat top over there. I want to put you on the schedule. And next thing I know, I'm in a management position. I always segue out of different conversations. Sometimes I got a hard time looping my back around. I was like, where did I start?
That was
everything we need to hit.
Yeah, basically it sounds like Varanese is kind of it has reached that point to where it runs itself. You don't need to babysit it, and then River House is
well, I have a manager that's been there for 17 years. My bartender's been there for 17 years. I've had a dishwasher that's been there for 17 years. My prep cook that has a key in the morning has been there for 18 years. She comes in when she wants, key and code, you know. My chef that's been with me there, the executive chef's only been a year and a couple months right now. My Sue that's running over there, I transferred him over from River House. He's been there for maybe 18 months now, but he's been with me total for 4 years. So it's having that consistency where you could go and depend on, you know, these people putting things together. You know, we're working on giving Varanese a new facelift right now and redo the menu. So, and even serving uniforms and menu covers and everything else. So I'm being a lot more involved right now. And, you know, I'm always there to help the staff. I'm there for you to fall on. I'm there, you know, watch you make your mistakes or help you out any way that you may need. But again, it's like, you know, you guys are paid to do a job. You have the skill level to do this job. Do it. And then I'm here to support you. And whatever it may be, from ordering or questions on a menu or how to get something executed, or I had somebody call out and I need to plug somebody, you know, in over there, and having the resources I have at River House really helped me take care of Varanese too, because I'm able to cross-utilize a lot of different things from product to staff to
so
marketing.
You do have staff going back and forth? I mean, probably
not
not all
some,
the time.
you know, yeah, not all the time. There's a couple people that want a second job, but, you know, I don't know, my manager got hurt or had to have a surgery or, you know, something else, I could move one over. That's awesome. Same thing with a cook or a chef, or somebody's on vacation, you know, just whatever curveball life throws at you that day. But, you know, it's just having that resource, or, hey, I ran out of that. Can I go borrow some of this? You know, we do that back and forth. Or I have a lot more space to hold things at River House, so let me get a deal on this and store it here, and then you guys come and get it as you need it. So even financially, it helps in different areas and whatnot. And the purchasing power of River House helps drive my costs down from some of my vendors. And so there's a lot of different facets that, you know, they work well together, just because of the resources itself and just having the teams. My GM at River House is very versed at in doing a lot of different things, and from HR to taxes to city stuff or whatever. And, you know, he supports my other manager a lot, and just even the operating systems from the point of sale system and things of that, or just things changing for, you know, taxes or government, just different things that they have to do as a manager. And, you know, they just have each other to work with. My bar manager has been working with my bar manager at Varanese, of changing some things, helping getting costs down, coming up with some different drinks, and more of it too, looking back of like, hey, you know, they have these deals if you buy X amount and this and plug that in, and you're becoming, you know, more profitable in certain areas. So it's just, again, cross-utilizing those resources are definitely beneficial for both places.
That's awesome. So how many staff total between both restaurants you have?
In season, we're probably about 180.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a lot. I probably 13, So 16 or 17 managers, salary managers between the two restaurants.
I didn't realize it was that big of a. I mean, it's like a company in the military.
just about. Yeah. You know, Varanese full and part time, you're anywhere between 33 and 35, and River House is about 120. You know, if you look at the whole space, we could sit almost 1,000 people at once. We don't, but the Savor upstairs, the banquet facilities, we could seat 350 people. It has its own kitchen. It's, you know, almost self-sustained, but easier to kind of run that because you know the business is coming, what they're ordering. You know, it's not the guessing of the a la carte service in the restaurant. And then you had the levy side that, you know, it was more of its own entity at a period of time before COVID with small plates and live entertainment, and COVID kind of killed the music. It made us really reevaluate the business and found out it was more profitable running it as the restaurant. So we used it overflow on the weekend. We rent it out for, you know, private parties and use it for cocktail hour if we have a wedding upstairs or whatnot. And then just the River House side, I can have 25 people working in my kitchen. Well, there will be 25 people working in the kitchen tonight.
Wow.
Tonight. That's between cooks, preps, and dishwashers. So we'll be just doing that, and there'll be 22 servers on the floor. There'll probably be 5 bussers, 3 food runners, 4 hostesses, you know, 6 front of the house managers, you know, 3 back of the house, 4 back of the house managers. So it's a lot of bodies, and then valet, and I mean, so there's a lot of different moving parts. Constantly, and it's a crazy machine. I always kind of, you know, look at it being like the conductor of the orchestra. Of, you know, how of putting it all together, and it's just funny what kind of goes on behind the scenes to actually execute what you see in the front of the house. I have a customer that brought me this painting from an artist in Naples, and I don't know if this is the exact title, but it was called like Heaven and Hell, and it's a split picture, and you have the front of the house where people are dining, everything's serene, everybody's buttoned up and enjoying their meal, and everything's kind of flowing and perfect, and then the kitchen's total chaos. There's, you know, chefs running around with butcher knives, and a cat running around, and a mouse in the corner, and a pot on fire, and just total chaotic, you know, and you have this total chaotic scene back here that creates this real serene experience that, you know, you have in the front of the house that you have no idea what it takes to put it all together.
Oh, yeah.
But just even the front of the house watching, you know, the staff moving around, just like busy little bees, worker ants, just buzzing around in their circles, bringing food in, out, dishes out, drinks out, you know, whatever, seating people. It's just a constantly moving situation, and managing something like that too is just it's never the same day twice.
Yeah.
I could constantly say that. The things that happen are like stories itself. You know, we sit down with our marketing team on Mondays with my managers, and half the meeting is just stories of what happened that week. And it's like, that didn't really happen. You know, one time I was driving back from Varanese, and I hear fire trucks screaming down Brownsboro Road, and one split down Mockingbird, and the other one continued to Zorn. I'm like, I wonder what's going on down the river. Next thing I know, my GM's calling me, and this is when I had to take over from Varanese. He's like, yeah, we got this guy who was homeless. He was coming through the restaurant, whatever. Now he's in the river. He won't get out of the river, so we got cop cars down here, an ambulance. Oh, here comes the fire truck. And I'm like driving, not believing him, and then all of a sudden you hear, he's like, it sounds like a helicopter. Yep, there's a helicopter now shining spotlight. I'm like, wow. You know, just all this stuff going on, and, you know, to get this guy out of the river that was, you know, just in the neighborhood that had some mental breakdown that, but
shit you can't imagine or plan for.
Yeah.
Like, the guest got a show that evening.
You're just trying to drop off some calamari, and it's just like homeless guy around here.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, he was in and out the restaurant. Well, it started off that morning that we came out to the patio, and the bar had all, like, it was set up. And I'm like, we're ready to go chew a manager out from making sure that bar wasn't broken down at the end of the night, and found out he was on property at 6 o'clock in the morning setting the bar up. And we confronted him. He's like, I had to get to work. I had to get some bar set up. It was like, sir, can you please go on your way. And then showed up back later and walking through the restaurant with no shoes on, smoking a cigarette, worked his way back down. Next thing, he has his dog with him. And I think that's part of why the police were called, because he had a pit bull with him running around on the property and whatnot. But, I mean, this guy, he took all his clothes off, had them piled up in the corner. He was, like, swimming, and then he was playing chase with the cops underneath the docks. And it was interesting. I mean, like I said, and that's just one snippet. I mean, I have 1,000 other ones. Again, you put that all together, wondering why people, gravitate, they could be easy kitchen confidential book, Anthony Bourdain. I mean, just the stories that go on behind the scenes in restaurants. It's just, it's never a dull moment.
I'm sure a lot of great laughs and big screams every now and then.
Yeah. And sometimes a lot of tears, dealing with a flood, being out of business, this year, 11 days, from 2 different floods, ice storm at the beginning of the year. That's another thing talk about, business location. I thought I'd hang my hat on is I did a lot of research of what flood levels were and how often it flooded. I'm like, okay, once every 9 or 10 years, it'll flood up here and we won't be able to get in the building. Well, I've been open for 9 years. I've had 7 floods. Also in that data, it's never gone over the 26.5 foot level twice in the same year, which floods us the street out and not get there. It's happened twice.
Dang.
So it never happened, and this is traced back in the mid 1800s. This has gone all the way back to, and it's happened twice. So you take your hard knocks in areas, and then you have your funny things that I was bringing product back and forth over a little John boat, and had an oar in my hand when paddling in this John boat, and a helicopter was above, and I happened to have my chef jacket on because I was working another restaurant, and I thought I was a smart ass, and I stood up and waved, and next thing I know, I'm getting calls from New Orleans and Florida, like, hey, you're on the Weather Channel. I guess the local news crews got that to the Weather Channel, and I'm all over the country in a John boat in my chef jacket waving at a helicopter, so...
I'm sure there's some TikToks out there with you on them, just like, look at this chef. Getting to
unfortunately,
work.
it was way before then. I mean, those things they would have been viral. I guess that would have happened in 17, maybe 17 or 18. I think the first flood. It was just almost after the first year, so it was just kind of getting into that. So I guess
TikTok wasn't famous yet.
No, but yeah, I couldn't imagine now. It's like certain things that would go viral in this industry. That would have been one of them. Just kind of funny that you're picking out one boat and this guy's in his chef jacket. It's like, what's the chances of that?
Yeah. So if we went back to that night when you're 16, you run out of food, you're running this restaurant by yourself, and I just popped in there. I was like, one day you're gonna have 180 employees, and you may even be paddling across a river to your River House restaurant. Is that something you ever envisioned? Would you be like, yeah, I could see that?
No, not really. I mean, it's funny because you kind of have your sight on things. Even though I said I was going to have 5 restaurants, I'm like, I'm kind of good at the moment. River House is like 3 right now between Levy and Savor and then Varanese. But there's always a thing how you think it's going to happen and then how it really plays out. You're like, wow, this is just above and beyond, my imagination of ever being the way it's come out. Like I said, for the first couple of years, just even walking outside Varanese, closing at night, walking out there 2 a.m, looking back, like, wow,
that's my name. This is
So, definitely, you see it differently, affects you differently, but just realizing what it really is or what goes on or what happens, I don't think there's anything that you could ever really put your finger on or predict the way it's going to be. So,
well, you're doing it.
Yeah. I've got a question. You talked about the painting that the customer brought you from Naples, and the back of the house, just mad chaos. And then you also touched on kind of like you get to a point after doing it so long. Now you're a quarterback. You see things happening. Are there ever times of like, even though all this movement is happening, you kind of get in a flow state and the restaurant's like synchronized and everything's just hitting perfectly? Like, do you find those moments throughout service at different times at the restaurants?
There is, and you're like, oh, that's a great service and it's flawless, and then you get your other services that You know, especially at the beginning, it was really hard. It was a lot of stress. I mean, again, the young quarterback that, you know, you just got out of, you skipped college and you went to the NFL, and that's kind of the way I felt. And another, talk about devastating experiences. I had two of them at Varanese, and both were derby time. And one was a plate up, and I had a party for 60 people. And luckily, they were having a surf and turf, so I had a fillet and a sea bass. And there was, like I said, 60 of them, and might have been a little more, but we were like 25% done with plating. And when you do that, you cook everything at a time. So I have 60 orders of sea bass. They're all on a sheet tray. Put them in the oven. We put them in the window. We're grabbing off of it, plating it, assembly line. Next thing I know is that one of my chefs hit it, bounced down off the table, and hits the floor upside down. And sea bass, when it hits the floor, it just shreds. And I'm just like, what do I do? And the only thing that saved me is I had a party the next night that was about the same size, and I had that much sea bass, even though I lost hundreds of dollars on the floor right then and there. I was able to get it, stuck it all in the fryer, and got it cooked like super quick, and had only about a 10-minute delay. But I mean, that could have been like, this whole party's done. You know,
you had a backup order.
I had
for a party
luckily
the following night.
Thank
so
goodness. if it wasn't for that, but I mean, I totally hyperventilated between screaming, not be able to breathe, what to do at this time. It took me a minute to even think about how to even fix the problem that I had in the first place. I'm like, what do you do? It's like your life just flashed between in front of your eyes there at the moment that you just totally screwed up a $10,000 party and everything's on the ground, and saying, what do I do? Sorry guys, dinner's done. Here's your money back. Have a good night. It's like,
you got to battle through.
But and there's some people that would not have the guts to be able to pull something off, or to make a quick decision like that. How do I fix that? And spur of the moment. And then it was like 2 years later, my manager made a mistake with booking reservations. Oaks night, the busiest night, and we're already packed. I already had like 230 tops already set, back and forth. And this table comes in, and we're like, we're here for this party. It's like, your tomorrow night. Don't joke with me. It's not funny. We have a reservation tonight. No, really, it's tomorrow. And went back through emails and whatnot and missed it. It was actually that night. I'm like, oh, what do I do? My bookkeeper's in the office. I'm like, all right. Well, first, I sat there, and again, another point of hyperventilating. It's like, how are we going to get that in? We moved some tables, moved another table out. Luckily, I had some collapsible tables in the shed, pulled out another table. I had to pull out another 30 top out of thin air. And then I'm like, all right, now I need food for it. So once I got that shit show taken care of, I went back in the kitchen. I'm like, all right, now we need to prep all this stuff, and we have 30 minutes to get it done. My bookkeeper's in the office. I'm like, you're out here scooping ice cream. You're going to help them with desserts. You're coming over here doing this. Grab the dishwasher. You're doing this. And I'm like, your server, you're not doing anything right now. You're coming back here doing this. I'm like, I'm ready to pass out. I feel my head like just going to explode at this point. I'm like,
shots.
How am I getting through this? And yeah, I mean, just pulling it all together, and I'm like, holy crap. And we had one table that just didn't get quite out in time, and it was like a 20-minute lag to get the other table in, and turned out to be a really successful evening, even though that almost hyperventilated, passed out, and lost my ever-given mind trying to figure all that out and how to make it work. And, our job is to create experiences and moments and memories, and somehow, you don't give up.
Yeah, it's like the famous Forrest Gump line that shit happens. And sometimes it hits that fan hard, quick, and it goes everywhere.
So that night of service, heaven stayed heavenly and hell was amplified.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So, like I said, wild rides, wild stories. I mean, there's a million of them through all all my times. Another derby one, it wasn't my own, it was Azalea. The hot water tank went out on Oaks Day, and we had just finished 300 covers for lunch, and every plate, pot, and pan in the house is dirty. And there's no way to get out. You got one little small 3-compartment sink. There's only so much you get clean. And we were getting ready to get into dinner service, and people were running around trying to find a hot water tank, get the plumbers in. And right at 6 o'clock, as things are starting to do, they get the last solder on it, and the hot water tank fired up. Had everybody possible trying to get dishes done, and just to be able to reset. I mean, there wasn't even silverware on the tables. There wasn't even glassware on the tables.
But you made it through.
Made it through. Well, that was opening night at Varanese too.
Jeez.
We were still, because you had a set. That was an experience. Talking about just even thinking things of experiences is that we were still doing construction, and you have to set out your soft opening. So I mean, you had to set a hard date. Here's your hard date, and they're still building tables. And I had every vendor there. I must have had like 60 people that didn't work for me, and we opened at 5, and it was 4 o'clock. Everybody's sweeping, cleaning. They're bringing in the tables from being built from the outside, resetting tablecloths. I'm back in the kitchen, barking, trying to get all the food done and trying to make sure the front of the house is all put together. In the meantime, those fancy glass doors I had made, I'm like 0-3 in architects, by the way. But this architect didn't order the doors in enough time, and they were sitting in the Atlantic coming from Germany on a boat, and they were 2 months late. And it was August. Well, I opened in August. August 16th was my first dry run. And, of course, 90 degrees out. I had to get a local company to put in the heavy-duty tent plastic and encase that whole front area. Because I'm like, I can't operate. That's the reason I put the addition on in the first place, to make it financially feasible. So you had 80 seats in there, and trying to keep it air conditioned. And that was a trip. And then on top of that, to secure everything, you had to bring the furniture inside the garage doors every night, and shut the garage doors and lock them, and then bring them back out. And after 2 months of that, I had to repaint the entire restaurant inside again, because you just beat up every wall possible. Things you look back and laugh at. It's like, glad that's over.
It can go wrong. It will.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we had we're obviously pretty young in our business careers, and the first year or two, you feel confident. You're like, shit can't go wrong. But it's, as we've gotten older, we realize, no, shit will go wrong. It's like half of our expertise is being able to deal with it and manage it. It's just, I'm sure, just like any nightly service, a deal for us can go wonky out of nowhere, and we're just like, what do you mean that you don't actually own this property and there's like 5 different liens on it, and just all sorts of crazy stuff all the time.
Question is how and when it's going to happen.
Yep,
it's going to happen. We don't know exactly what it is going to be, but yeah, it's going to happen. It's funny. One of my staff members for Christmas bought me these socks, and it's Ringmaster of the Shit Show.
Ringmaster, I like that. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that's what it is sometimes. But we do it because we love it. Wouldn't do anything else. Could imagine doing anything else. So
you're right where you need to be.
Yep.
What's next?
Right place, right time. I don't know. Kind of stay fluid. I got a GM that keeps on bugging me to do another concept. We're always playing around with ideas. He wants to do a cigar bar. There's 2 other buildings on the property that eventually my landlord will relinquish. We're part of his retirement there, so I'll have to pay rent on that. It's like, what do we do with that? We played ideas between breweries and distilleries and apartments and event spaces and cigar bars, and opening another River House is never out of reach. It's whatever works. For me, I don't know. It's kind of weird looking at saying, hey, 50, 51, and I got to start looking at end game. I have 2 young kids, started obviously younger or later in life, just because I always focused on business first. So I like to spend some time with them and kind of step out a little more as time kind of goes on. But I don't want to be working when I'm 70 years old either. For me, I guess end game is always I always said, do what you want, when you want, and how you want to do it. I don't want somebody else to dictate it. So if I'm there because I want to be, great. If I don't want to be, then, I want to be able to experience life. You spend all this time to work so hard to gain that financial independence, and then, some people just can't turn it off.
Yeah.
We see that a lot.
And I feel like I have that personality. If I didn't have a family, that's all I'd probably do. But it gives me more of a reason to kind of look at what's after and when we're going to get there. So I probably have another 12 to maybe 15 years max.
How old are your kids?
4 and almost 7.
There you go.
So
They working in the restaurants yet?
no, my son always wanted to see the dishwasher. Hey, Daddy, can I see the dishwasher? Can I see that? Like, you're going to see it soon enough. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And, as soon as I can get you on that spray head, hopefully do it to realize that, number one, I think it's really important for them to have some kind of discipline and know what hard work is. But on the other half, hope they get an education and get a job to where they don't have to work as hard.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, getting into this industry, especially into management, first job was probably 70, 80 hours a week. Every week, you're probably pushing 90. I mean, there's really not much life outside of that. And on a normal week, probably 55 to 60 hours in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. Even normal management, salary management, it's in the low to mid 50s. So, I mean, it's a lot of hours to put in for something. When you see other successful careers that have a 9-to-5 and more kind of family oriented, but it's whatever you enjoy. I'm not going to dictate to my kids, what to do, but to give them options. For me, I wasn't a big textbook guy. School kind of wasn't for me. And luckily I found the culinary because I was interested in it and I wanted to learn it. Everything else was just words, and I'd be done reading. I'd be like, what was that? Didn't quite comprehend it all. It didn't quite set in. So having more of a hands-on work field for me was, I guess, again, where I needed to be. Obviously, it just kind of fell into place. But I think it'd be, again, great for them to discipline themselves and see where it all comes from, learn how to deal with people, customer service. I think those will all be great things. And then whatever they do after that, I don't plan on them like, hey, you need to be a successor in my business. We could wrap it up, walk away at the end of it, and you guys live your lives. But,
awesome. So jump into the blitz round?
Yeah, hit it.
What's one book, and if you're not a reader, what's one movie that's had the biggest impact on your life?
Movie? Well, I guess back to books. I don't read very much, but Kitchen Confidential. I actually sat down and read that book in 2 days, which I never did, but it just kind of it hit home. You had a lot of relations to it, and just kind of how this industry can be and how it treats you and what you get out of it, what you put into it.
And that's Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
Very cool.
R.I.P. And then if, you're coming into the restaurant, servers are lined up, ready to hear how the day is going to be, what would be your walk-up song?
My walk-up song. Oh, man, I don't know. Eye of the Tiger.
Okay, I like it, yeah.
That's a good one.
And then I'm slipping on our third question.
I
Do you
got
mind
it.
helping me out?
It's been a crazy week. You're zigzagging back and forth to Varanese and River House. I mean, it's been a shit show, a successful one, but a shit show. What are you doing to decompress? What's one activity or one thing you do to just kind of land?
Besides a glass of wine, me and my GM at River House have made it set for the past 2 years. Almost every day after lunch service, we go work out.
Love it.
Really helps me just, physically, getting older, number one, but two, just being able to kind of decompress, get that kind of frustration, anger out, feel revitalized, regenerated, kind of getting back to work for the dinner shift. And I've always, for me, I always kind of worked out some. It's just kind of what was convenient because of busy seasons or whatnot. But the past 2 years, we usually end up taking like May off to August, or even later, September, because of how busy we are. And the past 2 years, we've just forced ourselves to make time and not make that kind of excuse and sticking with it. I think it's just kind of benefited both of us just in the part of having the stress and whatnot. But a glass of wine after work always kind of takes the edge off too.
Yeah.
I enjoy my vino and just learning about it, and just so many different fascinating nuances of wine and regions and varietals and age, and really enjoy the things that in our business. The food, I try not to enjoy it too much. I call it chef belly. Even though as much as I work out, I look at food and I feel myself putting on pounds. I don't even have to consume it.
Are you a foodie?
Yeah.
Like, what's your, outside of your food and what you make, what's like your, your desire? What's your favorite type of food?
I mean, I love mushrooms and cheeses. I love some good steaks. I just can't eat like that all the time, unfortunately. You got to really kind of watch what you do. It's kind of funny. People laugh at me being running a seafood restaurant. When I was 2, I was eating shrimp cocktails fast. My mom was peeling them and blew up like a balloon and spent the rest of the day in the ER because of allergic reaction.
Jeez. Oh, no.
And I was allergic to shellfish, and then I grew an allergy to fish. And even working at Dino's, I remember just, hands breaking out, peeling shrimp and whatnot. And somewhere in my 20s, early 20s, I'd go out to restaurants, and if something was in front of me, I'm like, okay, let me taste that. But, okay, it didn't bother me. Eat a little more. And I've totally grown out of the shellfish. I could eat any crustacean, octopus, shrimp, calamari, clams, scallops, whatever it may be. And then one day somebody put piece of raw tuna in front of me. Nothing. I'm like, okay. And for somehow I could eat raw tuna or lightly seared, fresh ahi tuna. Some of the fishes still kind of bother me. Get a little itchy throat or, contact on the skin. And I may grow out of that, but some of it, the palate quite hasn't developed on that. But I love eating raw tuna. I love sushi.
Yeah.
So,
because
it's lighter, it's easier to eat. I eat a lot of chicken.
Yeah.
One thing I enjoy doing, got a small garden at home, and on my days off, every day I try to, all the vegetables that I do for dinner, besides the protein, come out of that garden. Like tomorrow I'm going to make a beet salad with some black garlic and crushed nuts and goat cheese, a little truffle oil and balsamic on it. Make a little tomato and cucumber salad.
And you grew all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And the zucchini and squash, I'm going to do some grilled vegetables or whatever it may be. So anything else in dinner is going to be kind of made out of that garden. So I enjoy that. That's kind of part of being a chef. The creativity is spurred by what's coming in my back door, what's fresh, what's in season, what do my vendors have. Right now it's king salmon season, and I had 2 king salmon flown into River House yesterday from the Pacific Northwest, and I was inspired. Did a little king salmon crudo from some of the scrap yesterday for an appetizer, and then tonight it's going on a dish. And so, those are the inspirations that play. No, that's the worst offender of them all. It's sad is like some of it too, like sea bass and halibut. I think it tastes great, and then I'm like,
you get anaphylactic?
Yeah, I think I get a little itch. I haven't been like totally can't breathe, but okay. My wife's a nurse, so she's like, one of these days. I'm like, but it's funny. I was in Tampa this past weekend. Took the kids to Clearwater and celebrated my manager's 50th birthday in Tampa. Went and visited him, and we were at Burns Steakhouse and bring out the seafood tower. And they had something in there, and it looked like squingili, like conch. And I'm like, I want to try some of that. It's spicy and it's good. They're like, oh, that's cobia. I'm like, oh, really? Nothing happened. I'm like, all right, maybe it's the spice, the acid, maybe it's how fresh it is. I don't know. Maybe I'm kind of growing out of it more, but I had some raw cobia or ceviche cobia for the first time in my life. So,
wild,
but I'm always willing to try something. Being a chef, I mean, that's what we do. Got to try it all. You got to know how it all blends together. And even for me, of creating fish dishes, I'd always taste the fish, even though it would bother me to understand the profile of how to pair with it. It's just kind of what we do. So, I mean, if it's food, at least going in my mouth one time, there's some pretty exotic, weird stuff out there. It's kind of hard to stomach. Speaking of stomach, like tripe. So my old boss, Dino, he used to cook it and it tastes awesome. And then I have some of my Hispanic staff make menudo, which is a tripe dish. And it's totally different. You're like, ooh, let me hold my nose while I put that in my mouth.
The flavors and just all of it combined, the way in which they prep it.
Yeah, a lot of it Dino would do. There'd be a lot of washing
Mm-hmm.
and cooking and rinsing and washing and soaking and marinating and really trying to pull those pungent aromas and flavors out of it, as opposed to some people who just might not treat it as well.
Mm-hmm. And tripe is a type of fish.
No, it's actually a cow intestine.
Interesting. Okay.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
Pass on
adjective
that.
for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been interesting. I definitely, there's a lot that goes into the world of restaurants, and it seems like you're absolutely killing it and got something great going. Excited to see how
so
it keeps evolving.
a little bit of your world of real estate and business within what we do in our business is definitely a lot different from a lot of different just anything else. It's just it's a unique character, a unique animal. It's just kind of hard
intended. There's a lot of ingredients.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said before, it's not one or two things. There's just millions of little things that all have to be paid attention to in detail. And River House is just even Varanese. I mean, dealing with the railroad track and the trains. When I first got there, how many times that train would stop in the middle of the road during dinner service for 2 hours and not move. And River House, understanding the weather patterns coming in and when it's going to rain, and watching radar to watching the flood levels and what's going on upriver. I just even had a geography experience this year, realizing the Kentucky River actually runs into the Ohio right in Carrollton.
Yeah.
I had no idea, because I'm thinking Kentucky River that's out of Frankfort, it's going to flow south, and catching the Mississippi or somewhere else down there. I was like, no, you're going to dump in there. And that's because they had that severe flooding. I'm like, great, now you're just going to intensify on my problem.
Yep.
That was that learning experience.
It's funny you say that, because last weekend I live out in Prospect off 42, and my girlfriend and I was like, you want to go for a drive? So we just took off down 42 and went through Henry County, Trimble County, and then I was telling her, I was like, what's the next county after this? We didn't want to look it up, but I was like, I think it's going to be Carroll County. We roll into Carroll County. Next thing you know, I'm driving over a bridge, and I see the Ohio River at the end, and I'm like, what river is this right here? And then she looks it up, and it was the Kentucky River. I was like, what? Had no idea, but you going into Carrollton, you drive over the Kentucky River, but you can still see the Ohio River.
And even
It's
then,
like a
I would
T
have thought,
intersection.
even though I would have even thought that would even flow into the Kentucky River and out the other way.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. I guess just kind of sitting, you look at the map, everything drains down towards the Gulf and not, back up the other way. I guess it's just the way our topography is in the state. But yeah, just kind of realizing it is like, I would have never known. I had to learn, even the Ohio River, a lot of our weather comes up from Pittsburgh and West Virginia, kind of what happens up there. And the reason a lot of our flooding happens is when you have a lot of snowpack, and then all of a sudden it warms up real quick and that melts. And besides, the rain and the snowpack, that gives you your extra push of the water coming down. So
that makes sense, yeah.
It's all connected.
Yep. And then the wild animals down there, that's always a trip. Find out we had beavers down there digging out our head wall from our docks.
Bald eagles hanging out in the trees.
Bald eagle in the trees. The lightning strike a couple weeks ago. I'll show you guys that video in a moment. But our camera caught it. Well, one camera fried because it came down. I was like, oh, the trees got hit by lightning, and one of them had a score mark from the bottom all the way up to the top. And then when went down the riverside, it was like, oh, the other tree got hit too. Like, great, because one of them is where the bald eagle hangs out all the time. But anyway, we found one camera that got it, and when it hit, it was just like matchsticks exploding off these trees and shot stuff past the docks in the river and 100 feet this way and 100 feet that way. We're like, wow.
Good thing nobody was out there at the time.
Yeah.
Hit with some wooden splinters.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Come on.
Well, when the storm was coming, I know there's people on the patio, and they ended up moving inside. It was right around lunchtime, end of lunch, about 3 o'clock, and we were at the gym again, just coming back. But just amazing that, I always heard of lightning strikes, but to actually catch it on camera and see what it did, and I've seen them hit trees before and just like fire or a branch or break your tree or fall, but all the bark exploding off of that. I mean, there's probably a couple hundred pieces that came off of it. I mean, it was just like linking log splinters just blowing off of it. It's pretty fascinating. I was like, my landlord was like, "Oh, that tree's dead," because I guess cottonwood. The reason that they're down by the river is because they drink a lot of water. It's like thousands of gallons a day. He's like, with all that water in it and the lightning, it's probably fried. I'm like, I don't want to lose it because then we'll lose the eagle. Because the eagle, I mean, it's how particular this eagle is. He doesn't have a nest there, but when he comes to hunt or hang out, it's the same branch in the same spot every time. There's never another branch or another spot in that tree. It's like his spot. There's probably talons dug in there and whatnot, but
super cool. We'll have to come see him sometime.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Well, we got to figure out when he's there. It's usually on our Monday morning meetings when we're talking about our crazy weekends. We'll catch him up there every couple of weeks, just hunting or doing whatever. But
love it. Well, John, we appreciate you coming on the show. It's been incredible. Yeah. I think our listeners can derive a lot of value from this. If folks want to follow you, stay in tune with what you're doing in your world, is there Instagram or LinkedIn? Where can folks follow more and learn more about you?
On our Facebook page, Varanese is Facebook, and River House's Facebook page and Instagram. Also on our websites, Varanese.com and riverhouselou.com. We're always doing something different. At least Varanese, we have monthly events there. We do a wine dinner once a month, and we also do a bourbon dinner once a month. And the unique part about that is we've been doing it for 18 years, and we do it every month. And there's some restaurants that do it, but not as often as we do and consistent. And we execute them really, really well. And it's always something different. This week I actually did heirloom tomato dinner. Did it 2 nights. One of those fan favorites. But it's usually a great educational experience. The next wine dinner coming up at the end of August is called a blind tasting, and they won't be able to see the wine that they're drinking, and then a sommelier will discuss of deductive reasoning what they're not drinking to figure out what they are drinking. So the process of what a sommelier goes through of learning how to drink those spirits or drink the wines and figure out what grape it is, where it came from, even it had this temperature this year and it came out this soil content and this is the year it is and it came from the left bank of Bordeaux. It's pretty amazing what the master sommeliers could actually decipher from a glass of wine. Yeah, so that's why I always find those fascinating. River House will have a clam bake coming up in October that we do every year. I had a customer of mine that his buddy used to always have a big lobster boil after a party he had every year. So he built the steamer for him. He's in a steel fabrication company. And the steamer is, 4 feet long and 3 feet high and 2 feet deep. I could fit, what did I put in there? Like 1,200 clams with sausage and potatoes and corn. So something that you do in Cleveland. Clam bakes are big in the fall. Nobody does them down here, but being a seafood restaurant, that's just kind of fun. So, and our specials and stuff that we're, always changing up, doing different fish that I'm bringing in, or, stuff that we're doing with our farmers and whatnot. So definitely check that out, on our social media pages.
Plenty to explore, plenty to experience.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you, John.
Thank you
for being here.